We've got some big injuries on both sides of the New York Jets and the New York Giants. We'll reveal those status and everything else as it pertains to the Jets and Giants, and also some trade deadline rumors that are coming out for the New York Jets. We'll talk about those as well. Let's roll.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rodgers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
It's Christmas Eve of Jets Giants, baby. We get it once every 4 years. It's a juicy one. Thanks for joining me, everybody. My name is Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show. We also have the audio-only version up wherever you find your podcast. Simply search for Boy Green Daily. 20 minutes, quick action. Without further ado, let's bring in my special guest. He is Ty Butler. He joins us every week of ESPN 98.7. And does a wonderful pregame show with Brandon Jacobs on Sundays. It's phenomenal. You can see it a little bit there in the background. It's also on the thumbnail. Very nice. Again, I bet the Giants wish they had that kind of 1-2 punch in the backfield, but that's neither here nor there right now on Sunday. But Ty Butler, good morning, my friend.
Listen, good morning to you, sir. It's been a long time. I would imagine that there are a lot of Jet fans right now literally throwing up as they hear you saying Christmas Eve. And I know you didn't mean to, but if you go back to 2011, I watched the highlight yesterday, and I forget who's the analyst on the call. But he says right before Victor Cruz's 99-yard touchdown, he says the offense he's talking about the Giant offense as they're on the 1-yard line. He says the offense just needs to pick up a few yards so they could get in better position to kick a punt. And then we know the rest is history. The Jets go from being up 7-3 to down 10-7, and then their playoff hopes are dead. But a lot of fans listening to that just now, man, brought back some harsh memories, bro. So you got to tread lightly when you say things like that.
That's a good point. That's a Freudian slip if there ever was one. That is, wow, that was totally unintentional. But speaking of that, actually, your boy, Brandon Jacobs, he was with Bob Papa earlier this week. They did Papa's Perspective, and he had him on for like 15 minutes because that game you just mentioned was the last time the Giants beat the Jets. The Jets have won 2 of these in a row. Once again, it's once every 4 years. They haven't played in over a decade. But Brandon Jacobs got me fired up. And again, he's talking about the 2011 team, but he was like, we saw on tape, we knew they were a soft team. All those teams in the AFC East were soft. And that's the most disrespectful thing a football player could say about another football team. Calling you soft, calling you, light, calling you a little light in the pockets. It's just, ooh. I got fired up. Brandon Jacobs, I don't think is lining up on Sunday, but it got me revved up a little as he was recapping that game and getting to shut up the Jets. And of course, they go on to win the Super Bowl. So that bad memories, man.
Yeah, he's a big trash talker, and you mentioned the show that we do. I appreciate you giving us some love. We're not going to be on tomorrow just because Jet pregame starts at 11, but we'll be back next week. Brandon and I have a huge bet on the line. So if the Jets win this game, he lives in Atlanta. If the Jets win this game, he's gonna fly to New York City, do the show with me, but on the preceding night, take me out to dinner. But if the Giants win, vice versa, I gotta head to Atlanta Saturday night, take them out. And having 2 young kids, man, that's not really in the plans. That's not conducive to trying to be a good dad. So we really need. I'm gonna be objective. We're gonna break the game down.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I would be lying if I said I'm not desperately rooting for the Jets to win this game tomorrow.
Do you already, because like this is normally what happens, right? If you start doing some showboat and you're like, I've already picked the place, I've picked the time. Brandon, I already know what I'm going to order in my multi-course meal. Have you gotten to that stage yet? And have you let Brandon know that?
Nah, man. So you don't touch the
Okay.
money. That's always the mantra. And I did learn my lesson. So so this is week one when we debuted the show. You remember the Giants were playing the
Yep.
Cowboys Sunday night. The Jets, of course,
Oof.
playing the Bills. And
Yeah.
I threw a bunch of Jet Life Stadium,
Ooh.
Jet
Oh
Life
yeah.
Stadium
Mm,
statements that he did not appreciate,
I
and
bet not.
created some fun banter on the air. But then, of course, the very next day, Rodgers on play 4 tears his Achilles. So I've learned to
Yeah.
stay away from that. I'm not going to touch the money.
Although, again, if we're gonna recap just week one, losing 40-0 and getting
Yeah.
embarrassed on national television versus last second punt return overtime win, I get the Rodgers thing, but hey, Brandon, suck on that, baby, woohoo! But that's not what.
I'd rather lose 40-0 than to lose my starting quarterback for the season, or maybe because he says he's coming back. By the way, can I just ask you
Yeah,
a question? I know that
yeah,
usually it's
sure,
you asking me the question.
yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think
But feel free.
you think he's coming back this year?
I do, I do think he's coming back this year. I did
Why?
not. Obviously. Why? Well, first off, maybe it would change if I had some sort of medical profession. I do not. I do not. So, like that world, I just listen to other people. And when I had Stefania Bell on of the Mothership brand, she just said some things to me about his rehab, and I'm like, that he's like at this stage again. Things still have to happen, but she's doing her prognostication, talking about this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen. I'm looking at the dates. I'm going, okay, this. I'm like, man, if that math is right, then he could come back and be in the conversation in that last month of the regular season. Now, again, it's both Jet approval because again, the Jets have their doctors and he has Neil Elatrosh who had the surgery. So there's a lot of layers here that would have to make that happen. The Jets, of course, would have to sign off on it because the risk is, as Stefania told me, that if he elongates, is apparently the word, the Achilles, you can never fix that. Once that happens, it's over. So that's basically him coming back too early, too soon, and it's effed forever. So that part is incredibly scary. But yeah, for some reason, I have some weird feeling with his words, doctor's words, everything. Like, yeah, I think he's coming back this year. Yes, I do. Yes, sir. Mhm.
Well, I mean that would be amazing. I am not as optimistic as you are.
Sure.
But it would tell you, I guess, that maybe it wasn't completely ruptured. Now, I mean, it's silly for us to
I've
engage in
heard
this
that.
because
Right. Partial tear to full tear. Yes, I've heard people say that. Yeah.
we're not doctors. So, I mean, part of this exercise is going to be rendered silly, but it's interesting, man. But to get the conversation back to today and tomorrow,
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
why this game is huge. Because if there is any avenue that presents itself, where he comes back, it has to come via the Jets being relevant late in the season.
Correct.
And, not to be doom and gloom, do or die in week
Mhm.
8, but it's really hard to envision that the Jets are relevant late in the season if they lose this game, right? Because if you lose
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
Giants, who stink, and I get their fan base is going to sell you on momentum because they almost beat
Mhm.
Buffalo, even though they only scored 9 points. And Buffalo, in that 2 week stretch has been a mess because they didn't went on to lose to the Patriots. And then they beat the Commanders last week, who some folks convinced themselves Washington's a good team. I just can't see it. I've watched all their games, and they're just not
Mhm.
very good.
Yeah.
But if you don't beat the Giants, then everything is on the table as far as like losses. Like we try to do the whole
Yes,
win
that's
loss win
true.
game.
Mhm.
How are we saying with any type of certitude that you're going to win X game if you're losing to the Giants, who by the way went
Yes.
like 4 hours without scoring an offensive touchdown? Like,
Yes.
it's crazy. So this
Yeah.
is huge, man, for obvious reasons, but um, the Jets have a golden opportunity to prove that this isn't same old Jets because same old Jets lose this game. You're coming off of the high of beating Philadelphia. It's a bye week, and what like every time we see the Chiefs or like back when Brady was with New England, these teams coming off of a bye. And the
Mhm.
reason why the stat is important and significant isn't just because this head coach had 2 weeks to prepare, but it's also about having your guys ready, playing with the level of urgency. You're not used to having multiple weeks off, obviously, but getting them to come out with that force and that urgency necessary from the start of the game is what separates the bad to average head coaches from the good to elite ones.
Ty, we're friends, so I have to. Friends hold each other to a certain standard. So if you say something incorrect, I have to call you out on it. It's just what it is. That's how our friendship holds strong. You mentioned earlier in the program that you would rather lose 40-0 than lose your starting quarterback. Well, the Giants did lose 40-0 and did
And
lose
then,
their starting quarterback for this game. And what's interesting is I saw PFF Brad Spielberger, when the Giants officially announced yesterday that Daniel Jones was out, he quote tweeted and said, tough break for the Jets. That was his response to the Daniel Jones injury.
wait,
Hey
who
now,
said that? Who was it?
Brad Spielberger of Pro Football Focus. He said, tough break for the Jets, making a joke saying they probably would have rather faced Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I listen. I can see why that could enter someone's mind because I mean it's not that hard, but Tyrod has looked better in this offense than Daniel Jones had. The Giants, by the way, still have the worst scoring offense in football, and
They do.
in the last two games they scored 23 points. So it's not that significant of a jump. If you want to compare the two, maybe you'll say Tyrod's floor is higher, but Daniel Jones clearly has a higher ceiling, right? Like we know with
Yes.
Tyrod, he's now a career backup, whereas Daniel Jones just got paid $160 million, and you could say the Giants were wrong for doing that, but the fact of the matter is he was the quarterback of a team that did win a playoff game last year on the
That's
road.
true. Yeah.
I know this is a Jet show, but like that's a very concerning injury, man. Like now Daniel Jones, but like we went from Dable saying with confidence, he's coming back. To yesterday, you listen to him, he didn't sound all that sure and all that certain. And now this is the second time he's had that neck injury in 3 years. So the Giants might have a quarterback controversy, not between Taylor and Jones, but the controversy is like we just paid this guy 160 M's, and we might be looking for a new quarterback in the draft. But as far as the Jet defense, that offensive line once again for the Giants should be without Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
And this D line can get to the quarterback. They've been forcing a lot of turnovers, getting some pressure on the quarterback. So this is like one of those games where you have to get it done. And I want to see what that offense can do because the Giant offense, the Giant defense, the last couple of weeks has played pretty well, but they went against the Commanders, and then Buffalo. That's impressive. You're holding Buffalo to 14 points, but this Jet offense has to get cooking. Because you can't rely on your defense forcing 4 turnovers a game and then you barely winning. Like that's just not sustainable.
Fair enough. Here are the injuries, by the way. Garrett Brightwell out. He's a backup running back for the Giants. Daniel Jones, as we mentioned, is out. Andrew Thomas doubtful, and according to several Giants insiders, that means, as far as they're concerned, that he's out for this game. Here's from Jordan Renan. He said this: "It's pretty clear Andrew Thomas is going to need another week. That means Justin Pugh, our former Syracuse guy, will be at left tackle. He said he feels good that Darren Waller, KT, and John Michael Schmitz are going to play. He said he's a little less certain about Jackson and Neal, so that could be Adoree Jackson, obviously the corner, and then Neal, the right tackles. They could be missing, they being the Giants, several key members of that offensive line. Could be, it looks like definitely left tackle, but could also be right tackle, and we'll see on a couple of the other ones. So not ideal, and the Jets defensive line has to be licking their chops. So that is the Giants side of things on those big key injuries. So those are those coming through. And then on the Jets side, we have good news. Both Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed have cleared concussion protocol. They're good to go. Michael Carter II had been limited all week with a hamstring, so that was a little iffy, but he was a full participant on Friday, so he looks good as well. The only one that's out was Joe Tippmann. Irv Charles is probably going to be out for this game as well. Keep an eye out for Randall Cobb. He's been limited all week. Will McDonald laid ad on the injury report as questionable, but he was a full participant as well. So it looks like only Joe Tippmann and their special teams ace Irv Charles will be out for this matchup. So some health returning for the Jets. I guess the bye week did come at a good time after all.
It really did, because it doesn't sound like if they had played this game last week, Reed and Gardner would have been in there, because they just cleared protocol. What was it, 2 days ago? So that's very, very promising news for the Jets, and it obviously highlights what was so impressive about that win against Philadelphia. The fact that their defense was that elite against that offense, forcing that number of turnovers despite being without their two best corners, is why you have to feel great about that side of the ball. We know they were deep, but when we talk about the Jets' depth, it's usually their defensive line and how they're able to rotate guys, and that secondary. We saw some good things, man. So hopefully they can keep that going forward and get a much needed victory. Because think about it, they win this game. You've got a Monday night affair against the Chargers, who right now just don't look very good and look like they're on their way to firing their head coach.
And they're coming here from West Coast, East Coast.
Yeah, they come here and it's going to be a one-score game regardless. That's what the Chargers do. They just play every game they play is one score outside of last week. Yes, I will be on ESPN New York tomorrow night with Jake Asman following the game. Mike Greenberg going to join us, so that should be fun. And then they got the Raiders, man. So this is a quote unquote winnable stretch. You go from the gauntlet that was the first 6 games, the toughest schedule in football. You come out of that 3-3, which you would have felt good about coming out of that with Aaron Rodgers 3-3, and now you play an easier slate and a chance to get to 6-3 before you play that tough Miami Buffalo or Buffalo Miami duo prior to Thanksgiving. So that should be fun and presents this team an opportunity, man, to really make a playoff run.
Well, Ty, let me ask you this, because you dance in both waters with your job, ESPN, again, 98.7 there in New York, both doing Jets and Giants and knowing their strengths and weaknesses on both sides. You've mentioned this a winnable stretch. I think everyone would agree with you. Hell, the Jets could win all of these. It's possible that would put them at 6-3. But let's not put the horse or cart before the horse here. Let me ask you this: how fearful are you of this Giants game? Because on paper, everything seems to line up for the Jets in a lot of ways for this game. They're coming off a bye. Giants have all these injuries, but everything's not always as easy as it appears. Do you have any concern heading into this game that the Jets will blow it coming off the bye week?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, not too long ago, the same old Jets thing just rings so true in your head, like it's resounding. And if they come out of this game smelling themselves, or come into this game smelling themselves, and taking the Giants lightly, that's going to be a problem. That's a poor reflection of the coach. Like, the coach has to have this team ready. Now, ultimately, the players have to deliver. But the Giants, I don't think they're very good. But Brian Dable, who was the coach of the year last year, is preaching in that locker room. It's just like the Jets have a path to making the playoffs. The Giants, while more improbable, still have that exist, because the NFC, you look at the bottom of the conference, it's just very weak. And there's going to be a bad team to get that 7th seed. So the Giants, I mentioned the Jets' upcoming schedule. The Giants face a similar slate with what they have on the docket for them, because after this Jets game, I'm just trying to pull their schedule up. I have it here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But after this Jets game, they play some teams that you feel like they can win. And for some reason I can't get it up. But I know they got the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Commanders, Patriots, Packers, Saints.
It's a lot of wins there.
So outside of that Cowboys game, you're looking at a bunch of games that they could possibly win. So they're gonna come ready to play. Like, this is not a team that's just gonna lay over and punt on the rest of the season. They still have an opportunity to make things interesting. So this is a big game for both teams. And the spread is only 3. So Vegas is telling you that it's going to be a field goal game, which means that it's going to be a close one. And you got to hope that Zach Wilson and that offense can get it to the end zone, which they haven't been able to do frequently this season.
Yeah. Also, to your point, both of the beat reporters that I've heard and listened to their shows, Rich Cimini of ESPN, of course, the mothership, and Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic, both said what you said, that they, based on all their conversations and insights, the Jets are smelling themselves coming off the Eagles win. And they believe, both of them, that there is some sense that they're overlooking the Giants. And Rich Cimini, in his podcast, projected and predicted the Jets would actually lose, because he thinks the Jets are overlooking this team. And also, Salah's history coming off the bye is 0-2. So that's another part of the preparation process he thinks is going to stumble. So they all believe that the Jets, there's a little too much hubbub coming off that Eagles win. I don't know. I look at it and say, wow, I understand the extra hubbub for the Eagles because you were heading into a bye, so you didn't have to immediately turn the page. And it was the friggin' Eagles. Let's list all of the teams that beat the Eagles this year. The New York Jets. That's the list. I don't know. Maybe you should be smelling
Yeah.
yourself. I would be. I am after that Eagles game. I'm smelling a lot of boy green. Yes.
But there has to be a healthy sense of like humility that comes into the equation, understanding that yes, you beat the Eagles, but all of that goes away if you lose this game to the
Of
Giants. Like
course.
we're
Yes.
we're now not even talking about that game anymore. The 0-2 stat, it keeps getting thrown around, and I
Yes.
understand it because I talked about it at the start of the show with like the best
Mhm.
coaches have great records coming off the
Andy
bye.
Reid. Yeah, he's
The,
he's
the
the
fact,
he's the
but
poster
the
boy.
but the fact of the matter is, with that stat, like Salah's entire record is not good. So of course, like his record coming off a bye is not going to be very good.
26 and
Uh,
40. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Or
So
whatever that is. Yeah. It adds up to 40. Yeah, yeah.
so it's a big test for them, man. How do you deal with success? And we've seen a Jet organization not be able to deal with it well. So
That's true.
this is the latest installment of us watching them try to navigate and deal with early success in hopes that they can now do something with it and turn it into a season that we didn't think was possible, and that's finding a way to remain in the playoff picture post Aaron Rodgers Achilles surgery.
Let me ask you this question here, Ty. If the Jets win this game in really any fashion, I guess, whether it's close or a blowout, will that quell any of the same old Jets narratives to you? Because then it would prove that this team has a different mettle than it had last year. And then now heading into those two games we mentioned, which again are both primetime games, Monday Night Football against the Chargers, Sunday Night Football against the Raiders. All of a sudden, okay, this team isn't just going to lay the egg. They're not just going to drop the other shoe after beating the Giants. Will you feel that way after this game if that does happen?
I would, if not for us literally watching them last season go from 7-4 to 7-10.
That's a good
So
point. That's a good point.
they
Yeah,
finished that off by losing 6 straight games. So with this team, to quote your guy Kevin Garnett, anything's possible. So it's going to take a lot more than beating the Giants
fair
tomorrow
enough.
to quell that, but it'll quiet it just for the time being, for as long as uh, 8 days from now when they got the Chargers on Monday night.
All right, let's get your two things here. First off, let's get your official prediction for this game. Crystal ball it for us. Jets, Giants. What's happening? And I will make sure to tag Brandon Jacobs after you say this. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm going to go 21-17. The Jets win this game.
Okay, I will take a win. That is very nice. Also, set us up for all the coverage for ESPN 98.7. You mentioned Brandon Jacobs. He's calling out tomorrow. I understand. I understand why he doesn't want to show up. Jets, Giants. I wouldn't want to be embarrassed either, so that makes sense. But what other coverage will you be having, Mr. Ty Butler, tomorrow with you on air? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll be on today, this afternoon, actually, at 3 o'clock. We're going to be
Nice.
doing
Okay.
a lot of the rivalry between the Jets and the Giants. Big game tomorrow. Who's it bigger for? We'll throw some basketball in there as well. By the way, I was at the Garden the other night. Watch your Celtics come back from down 6 with about 3 minutes left in that game.
Yeah, you were up
To
in the suite, right, with Garrett Wilson, Jordan Whitehead. Yeah, look at the squad up there. Yeah,
It
Mike
was fun.
Greenberg, very nice. Yeah.
It was fun, man. But yeah, your boys look pretty good. And then last night, on national TV again against Miami,
Very
Derek
fun.
White. I mean, Derek White's now cut his hair. He's bald and
Yeah,
he
that's a
looks
little weird.
different.
Yeah.
But that team is loaded, man. So yeah, we'll talk some basketball today. We'll talk some basketball. I think the Celtics right now are the best team in the Eastern Conference, but a lot of season left to play. It should be fun. It's a fun time of the year. You got the World Series going on. Rangers won last night in dramatic fashion.
That was
You've got
fun. Yeah.
the NFL in Week 8. It's crazy how it's flying by. And then you've
Yeah.
got basketball just starting up. Hockey, all the hockey fans out there. So it's a fun time of the year, man. It's great.
Yeah. And also, what do you have tomorrow? So you got today, you got some afternoon radio coming up in a bunch of
Yeah,
hours.
and then,
What about tomorrow?
then tomorrow night, 9 to midnight, I am on with Jake Asman. We'll have
right,
Greeny on the show, Mike Greenberg. So that should be fun.
Yes.
We'll either get a very emotional Mike Greenberg following a pretty pathetic loss, or an exuberant one. And it's gonna be like his pregame to the Get Up program on Monday. So we'll get a first crack at his raw emotions following whatever happens in this Jet game.
Well, that should be a lot of fun either way. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Boy Green Daily. Make sure you check out Ty later today at 3 o'clock and also tomorrow night with Jake Asman. That's going to be phenomenal. We'll see you tomorrow morning for one more Boy Green Daily, a game day version previewing this Jets-Giants game. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.